Okay, it's 10:01. We're going to go ahead and get the meeting started today. I think it'll be a fairly short meeting, but before we get rolling with it, I just wanted to kind of go over some logistics that make these types of meetings work a little bit better for us. And that is if you keep your camera off unless you're talking and keep your microphone muted. That just helps make sure that whoever's presenting or asking a question is able to clearly communicate that to the group, and there's not any background noise that would be distracting with that. So for those of you who may be new, I see some names that maybe I don't recognize, but for those of you who may be new to our meetings and haven't met me, I'm Kim Nygren. I'm the Deputy Director for the Water Availability Division, and that's where we house our water rights permitting program and our Water Master program for the TCEQ. And so with that, I'm going to kick it to the next person. And Jason, if you would please kind of keep us rolling through the agenda for me. Thanks.
Absolutely. So this morning, we've got a few folks that are going to give some updates for you. Unfortunately, Kathy Alexander cannot be here today, but Kim is going to give us a brief update on the water availability models. Ruth Takeda from our legal division is going to give a legal update for anything water rights related. Brooke McGregor is going to give us an update on water rights permitting and availability section. And then Pepe Davila is going to give us a Water Master update. And after each one of these topics, there'll be a time for question and answers. If you do have a question, please use the raise your hand function of the of Teams. That way we can answer those questions and not everybody's turning on their microphones and talking over each other. Also, if you want to type it into the chat, you can do that as well, and we'll read the question and answer it as well. So with that, let's get started. So I guess it's back to you, Kim, to give us a water availability update.
And it'll be just really brief. We really don't have any updates from our last meeting that we had. I know that several people have talked to us about what the process would be to update naturalized flows and work with the TCEQ to make sure those types of updates could be incorporated into our permitting process. So if y'all have got those questions, if you've got things you're looking at, by all means, you can reach out to Kathy, you can reach out to myself, and we'll work with y'all to understand kind of what our constraints are there. But outside of that, we've had questions asked of us about the potential for funding to continue to have the remainder of the naturalized flows updated for the WAMs. Beyond those questions right now, I don't know how that will proceed, so I don't have an update for you all on that. And hopefully by the time we get to our next quarterly meeting, we'll have a little bit more to update on the WAMs. And that's all I had. Thanks.
All right, does anybody have any questions at this time? All right, well, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and move on to Ruth Takeda from our legal division to give us a brief legal update.
Thank you, Jason. It will be very brief. Just to let y'all know, I may have mentioned at our last meeting, but I don't think it had occurred at that point. We have a new director here at the agency in the Environmental Law Division. So here at the Legal Services, our new director for ELD is Charmaine Backens. She comes to us from the Litigation Division. So she has taken over from Robert, and he had been succeeded by an acting director, Guy Henry, who did a very good job, but we're fortunate to have Charmaine. We've been tracking some cases that are up on appeal. In the district court, there is no update to provide to you regarding the National Wildlife Federation versus the TCEQ. That remains pending. There's a case in the Texas Supreme Court. We are not a party to it, but it is Pape Partners versus DRR Family Properties. And we had oral argument in that case on March 24th. And the TCEQ did participate as an amicus in that oral argument. So we're waiting for the court decision. That matter remains pending. And that concludes my updates for y'all. Thank you. And I guess, Jason, that's back to you.
Yes. Thank you, Ruth. Does anybody have any questions at this time?
Well, I think you walk with the work, they're really nice.
Okay, I don't see any hands up or anything in the chat, so let's move on to Brooke McGregor, who's going to give us an update on the water rights permitting section.
Thanks, Jason. For those of y'all who don't know me yet, my name is Brooke McGregor. I'm the manager for the water rights permitting and availability section, and I have a little slideshow here to share with y'all today. Let's talk about water permitting and availability through the second quarter. So kind of up front, just some sort of permitting updates to make everybody aware of. We have revised our main application form. So that's the administrative report, the technical report, and the instructions. There's not a whole lot of major updates in there, but you know, it is the new application form. So anybody who's coming in for any amendments or new water rights, we need those forms to be used. One of the big things, the big thing that's on there is there's now a spot for the date that you had your pre-application meeting with us. So we've talked about it in previous work groups before, but so we have started requiring those pre-application meetings. And you know, sort of some background behind that is we've implemented some processes here within our division to sort of look at time frame improvements and efficiencies, kind of like a lean management system. Some of y'all might be familiar with the TCEQ lean management system, or the EPA has one as well. And so, you know, kind of through that process, we've worked through that for a few years, or a little bit over, well, yeah, a few years now. And through that process, one of the things that we really saw was the difference that having pre-application meetings make. So the applicants, when you're looking to have an application that you want to submit, you know, those meetings give us an opportunity to take a look and provide feedback, and then it also gives the applicant the opportunity to sort of explain exactly what they're looking to do. And so almost always the applications come in much more substantially complete when we have those pre-application meetings. And we did a major form revision a few years back, and that helped a lot. And we're continuing to tweak our forms where we need it. But the pre-apps is where we're really seeing a big difference. And just for anybody who's coming in for a pre-app, you know, what's very helpful is to have a draft of the application that you're planning to submit. Now, if we need to have sort of more like a conceptual meeting of what's even, you know, feasible, or what direction do we need to head, that sort of thing, we can have those kind of meetings as well. You can just reach out to us and we can get those scheduled. We kind of call those pre-apps. They're sort of a conceptual type of thing, but by the time that we're ready to have the pre-app, we really would prefer to have a draft of the application. And then I know some of y'all have probably submitted applications a lot, or it's so you're very familiar with what that looks like. You know, if you find yourself kind of being in that category where you're very confident that what you've done is correct, we may not necessarily need to have our entire staff attend a pre-app. Just reach out to me, and we can sort of try to have a quick meeting so that you can check the box that you had a pre-app. So, all right. So this is the total pending water rights that we have right now. So right now we have 134 applications in-house, and they're broken up by technical review group. So that's what that looks like. So one thing, so I should mention that before I move on, or well, they're kind of associated with each other, but we have a very high number. So this is the complete number of pending applications that we have, but we have a large number of applications that are a part of this graphic here that have been contested. So we at TCEQ have gone through, all of our reviews, submitted a draft, and these applications have had a request for a contested case hearing. So they're still pending with us. They haven't been issued, so they're still, considered in-house, but they're sort of to a place now where they've had a requested a contested case hearing. So from this graphic, you can see that almost 1 out of 5 of the applications that we have pending with us right now are contested. So it's very high, I think, and Kim can chime in, but I think it's like a very high number compared to what we've had historically. I think it's rarely even gets into the double digits. So,
and you're correct on that, Brooke.
Okay, yeah. And here's just the chart that y'all have seen before that looks at our total number of pending uncontested water rights. So out of that big universe, we sort of move the uncontested out of it. And so that's what this looks like. And we've really been focusing a lot the last year and a half on getting that backlog down. Our goal is 125. So we've been successful in reaching that target and maintaining that pending level to be below 125. This is just kind of a snapshot of through the second quarter, the sort of the workload that we've had this fiscal year so far. So we've received 43 applications. 27 of those have been fast tracks. 3 have been House Bill 1964 applications, and we've completed 36. And so completed, it's just broken out a little bit more because that completed can mean a few different things. We do, have returns and people who withdraw their applications. And then again, we have 25 contested applications on in-house right now. I wanted to talk a little bit about our timeframes. So part of our, you reduce the backlog, get some of those older ones out, and then start working on really focusing on timeframes. So part of our overall goal of reducing timeframes is focusing on the administrative review process. And so we set ourselves a target date for 90 days for those. And so far we're about 71%, which is an improvement for sure from the past. And then House bills. So we talked a little bit about how many House bills we received, how many fast tracks we received. We've processed 2 of those so far this year. We don't necessarily get a whole lot of those because they have sort of very specific parameters that have to be met to meet a House Bill 1964 application requirement. So generally, we process these very, very quickly. You can see that so far this year, we've had one that we have not been able to process within 90 days. That one had some nuances that involved a lot of coordination with legal that we had to sort of work through. So that's the big contributing factor for us not being able to meet that time frame. But I would just say in general, these always get processed. Well, so far this year, they've gotten processed much more quickly than the other 300-day time frame that we have for all our other applications. So this one got, even though it missed the 90 days, it went much quicker than 300.
Well, and Brooke, before you move on, I'll just say our average processing time right now is 72 days on that type of amendment. So our one that went over 90 days really is an outlier. And we've only seen 2 this year, but I think in the first 2 years after House Bill 1964 was passed, we had a higher number that came in, somewhere between 10 and 15 each of those years. But that's kind of dropped off this year. And in general, and create, you can add more to this. What we see is what we've gotten in this year. The applications are more complex. We don't have the number of fast tracks and 1964s that historically we've had, and not quite sure if that's a temporary trend or one that will have more permanence, but we're kind of tracking that just so we know how to balance our workload.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Kim. And looking over to fast tracks and sort of our processing timeframes for those. So our goal is to get those done within 30 days, and we've done 89% of those on time so far this year. So, and then the change of ownership team, I think I talked about this in our last quarterly meeting. So the change of ownership, the water rights compliance and assurance team is now a part of the water rights permitting and availability section. So I'll be providing some brief updates on that sort of stuff moving forward. So you can see we've processed a very large volume of change of ownership applications, and a very high percentage of those are being processed within 90 days. So that's great. And then water use reports. So they were mailed out January 1st. They were due March 1st. So not too long ago. We, as of today, or as of yesterday, 52% of the submittals that we've received have been using the SUNS database, which is the electronic submittals. So that's great. We'll see what it looks like when everything gets in, but that's already up significantly from last year.
Well, and Brooke, before you move on from this, I know that I've had a couple of conversations with stakeholders about some of the good things about using that system and some of the challenges. So I want to make sure that everybody in the meeting today knows if y'all want to share kind of what is a challenge or maybe an inefficiency for you all in using that system. We welcome that feedback. We'll have to, compete with other priorities of the agency for enhancements to the system. But the more information we have and input we have from stakeholders on how to make that system better and more efficient for y'all, the more it helps us kind of know where we should fall in those priorities. So Brooke has got an email address here for questions on the water use reports. Y'all can, email myself or Brooke directly with any issues you have, but you can also use this email address to just let us know. We really welcome that feedback. 52% electronic submittal this early in a process where people can submit things electronically is really good. Usually you have to work a lot harder to get to these types of figures. So we're real fortunate for that. I think COVID probably gave us a little bit of a bump, right? But we'd always like to see that number improve. So whatever we can do to help ourselves improve that number, we'd like to do that, and your input is key to that. So thank you.
Yeah, and also it just if any of y'all are at a point where you're just not really sure exactly, have any questions about how to fill it out specifically. So there's the feedback piece on how the system works in general, but if also you have any questions about how exactly do I need to fill this out, call me or call this number, and just that's our main line, that 4600 line number, and just say you have a question about your water use report, and everybody on that team is really great and they can pretty much walk you through exactly what you'll need to do. And then I just wanted to go over some quick staff updates. So we have welcomed Elisa Patterson to our section. She is going to be a direct report to me, working as a senior hydrologist. And I should have put on here, she is a PE, so we're really thrilled about that, to have the opportunity to be able to provide engineer and training opportunities to any new staff. And then we still sort of have we still have the same vacancies, but we've made progress on a lot of these. So we are interviewing currently for those hydrologist positions and hope to get them filled sometime in the next few weeks. And we are getting ready to post the aquatic scientist position as well as those project manager positions. And those are on the water rights compliance assurance team. So little quick staff updates, and that is all I have. My contact information as usual. That's it. So if anybody has any questions for me. All right, thanks y'all.
All right, thank you, Brooke. I don't see any questions. No, I don't see any hands up or anything in the chat, so we will move on to our next topic. Pepe Davila with the Water Master section is going to give us an update on the Water Masters.
Yes, thank you, Jason. Let me share my presentation here. Okay, are y'all seeing it?
Yes, we see it.
Okay, thank you. All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Jose Pepe Davila, manager for the Water Master section under WRAWG. Thank you for the opportunity to share an update on our Water Master operations. I would like to begin my presentation by saying that we're operating under a TCEQ workforce plan as of March 1st, following COVID-19 operations, where for the most part, we have remained the same. Those operations have remained the same as before COVID-19, with some level of change in the office coverage, but always guaranteeing appropriate customer service. We continue to ensure office and phone coverage, field coverage, coordinate public access to physical Water Master records, as well as for in-person meetings across the section. We continue to have an amplified level of electronic and virtual communication and interaction with our customers and the public. We continue to encourage our users to submit pump operation reports, temporary permit applications, and core data forms in an electronic format. The use of video calls have resulted in a highly effective manner to conduct internal and external agency business. We have successfully conducted a couple of hybrid Water Master Advisory Committee meetings in the Rio Grande, multiple meetings with water holders, and conducted job interviews. We will continue to maximize our electronic resources, tools, where it's reasonable and without compromising customer service and attention. We continue to monitor and manage our Water Master budgets closely. We coordinate appropriate expenditures across the section, targeting plan operating expectations. We're in full Water Master budget development for fiscal year 23 and FY22 Water Master basin evaluations. We have mailed our first round of outreach letters related to the evaluations in early March, and we're collecting comments from those recipients.
And Pepe, before you go on to your next slide, I apologize for interrupting you. We did mail out that initial outreach letter for the Water Master evaluations this year. Part of what we included in that letter is where we're planning to have our public meetings associated with those evaluations. So what we did was a combination of we're doing 2 virtual meetings through Microsoft Teams, just like the meeting we're in right now, that people can tune into. But we also had planned to do an in-person meeting in San Angelo and an in-person meeting in Abilene. And the intent behind putting that in that initial outreach letter was if folks felt like there were additional specific locations where we needed to hold those in-person meetings, they'd have that opportunity to request those. We're just trying to get kind of target our in-person meetings where we know that we had a lot of participation in those in-person meetings before, and we still have a lot of interest in the process, but also make sure that we offered a virtual alternative that makes it real easy for people to tune in to those virtual meetings, you know, kind of regardless of where they are in the state and, you know, what they might have going on in their schedules, where we got to kind of down into the coastal basins last year or last time. And for the last several years, and where we got up into the upper Colorado and the Brazos, we found that people, we had very little attendance in those in-person meetings, and didn't know if a part of that was just a lack of interest in general, if it was the distance to drive and time out of schedule, but we looked to target those meetings this year. In our minds, a little bit more broadly, with room at this point to provide input if there again are additional specific in-person locations people are really looking for. So go ahead, Pepe.
Thank you, Kim. Program updates. At the closing of the second quarter of fiscal year 22, the Water Master programs have completed 17,725 water right site investigations. That is 45.91% of the required 38,600 investigations annually. They have addressed 26 surface water complaints and reviewed 64 temporary permits. I mean, that includes issued, returned, or withdrawn. This is really outstanding given the special circumstances created by multiple vacancies across the section. Rio Grande Water Master update. We will fill one Water Master deputy vacancy in Eagle Pass next week. So we're really excited about that. Reservoir system conditions. As of March 26, 2022, the U.S. combined ownership at Amistad Falcon stood at 35.71% of normal conservation capacity. That is down from 43.18% a year ago. Overall, the system is holding 24.99% of normal conservation capacity, with Amistad at 31.28% of conservation capacity and Falcon at 17.22% of conservation capacity. Mexico has 10.62% of normal conservation capacity in the system. Followed by the closing of the 1944 water treaty cycle number 35 in October 2020. The TCEQ delegation has continued to meet with Mexican government officials and members of the IBWC as part of a technical and policy work groups tasked with developing a water availability binational model and Mexican water delivery scenarios aimed to minimize the impact of transboundary drought conditions. Mexican deliveries reflect a preliminary deficit based on TCEQ calculations to be at 424,391 acre feet since October 2020. For South Texas and Concho Water Master program, we're in the process of filling the South Texas and Concho Water Master position as Ileana Spate became our water master liaison on March 1st. She will be acting water master during this transition. We're also in process of filling an administrative assistant position and an assistant water master position in South Texas. In general, they continue to be able to address surface water complaints, process multiple temporary permits, and routine inspections. A curtailment pumping schedule is planned to take effect soon in the Upper Guadalupe this week. Water holders in that area follow their special conditions in their permits and their schedules accordingly under the supervision of the water master and staff. Concho Water Master, we have 2 current vacancies. We are in the process of filling the Concho Water Master assistant water master and Concho Water Master deputy position. We're hoping to have them on board in the next month or so. Brazos Water Master is in the process of filling 1 Water Master deputy vacancy in the Waco area. Irrigation starting to ramp up. WRA reservoir system is in 93.5%. WRA initiated a stage 1 drought according to their DCP. And our water master deputies continue to conduct inspections every week as normal. And the last slide I have is this. We have past, current, as of March 29, and future drought images. In general, we're preparing and bracing to be in busier operations across the section caused by drought conditions across the state and in Mexico. Expecting that to be reversed by Mother Nature in wetter months for everyone's benefit. Credit to Jenny Torres in SWAT for the image.
Well,
And
I'll say too, before you move forward, the drought map is a reflection of soil moisture conditions. So it's that preliminary indicator that we've got really dry conditions and we could start seeing impacts on stream flows and reservoirs. For the most part, statewide, we're dipping under the median, long-term median flows, but haven't reached sort of a 33rd percentile just yet. And in our experiences, when we approach and get below that 33rd percentile, that's where we really see some challenges coming the way of water users. So we're watching that really closely. We've gotten to lower levels in the Rio Grande and in South Texas, where Pepe's talking about starting some curtailments, but in those areas, our users are real familiar with where they stand, or in like he said, in the Upper Guadalupe, they've seen pumping schedules and curtailments before. So we haven't kind of gotten into new typical territory yet, and we're not seeing yet what we saw back when the last drought started in 2011, but we are keeping a real close eye on it to see kind of what we might be forecasting, but definitely as a group, we're starting to talk about should conditions persist as they're projected to, how can we be ready on our end? So those are pretty active discussions right now for us. Go ahead, Pepe.
thank you, Kim. And that's all I had for today. I'll be glad to address any questions at this point.
All right, I don't see any hands up or anything in the chat. This is our last update for the day. So if anybody does have a question about anything, any of the updates that you've heard, or if they have one for the Water Master section, now would be that time before we close out the meeting. All right, I'm not seeing any questions. So Kim, if you want to close out the meeting.
I'll do that. Thanks to everybody for joining us today. And as always, you know, we typically get a couple people who reach out to us after the meeting just because they've got questions they want to ask, but maybe not take up the time of the whole group. So definitely y'all reach out to myself, Brooke, Pepe, Jason, or Kathy. We can all take questions. Thank you, guys.